I'd like to call the City of Ottawa Common Council meeting for November 19th to order. Has been appropriately noticed.
Yes, Your Honor, it has.
Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg,
Here.
Alderman Zwart,
Here.
Alderman Stray,
Here.
Alderman Kavieski,
Here.
Alderman Rogers,
Here.
Alderman Rozak, Alderman Shaw,
Here.
Alderman Ellis.
Here.
Tonight, we have 4 public hearings. The first public hearing is on the proposed 2020 city budget. The purpose of the hearing is to hear public comment on the proposed 2020 city budget.
Okay, that's not it. Here we go. All right, so tonight we present the 2020 City of Oconomowoc budget proposal. The 2020 budget public hearing, the annual budget, it determines the services that the city will provide and how they're funded. So within the budget, the council decides the level of service and the costs, how to fund each initiative, whether it be through state aids, fees, taxes, or et cetera. The council tonight will also set the property tax levy needed to fund the services identified within the budget. The levy is then allocated to each of the property owners in the city on their tax bills. The 2020 budget presented tonight was recommended for approval by the Committee of the Whole on October 1st, and then revised at the City Council meeting on 11/5. So tonight, I will also be asking the City Council for a budget amendment to get to where we're at in the proposed budget tonight. So talk a little bit about some of the changes that were made by council during the committee budget workshops. Included in the public hearing notice that was in the paper are the amendments that the council made in the October 1st meeting, which included increasing various police fees to about $15,740 increase. They did decrease the budgeting for the Sister City initiative by about $10,000, removed the employee recognition program for about $1,500, reduced the dog waste bags in the park by $1,000. At that time, reduced dispatch for a net of about $17,000, eliminated the town of Oconomowoc dispatch revenue, added the WCC one-time cost of $162,000. We did add a clerical intern, summer intern for $7,500, reduced library materials books for about $5,000, and added back the Blaine Street Tennis Court for $120,000. That's included in the capital projects in our debt budget. At that time, the total levy was $11,996,233. Then at the City Council meeting on November 5th, a couple of amendments were made there by changing a resolution. Basically, what the amendment will be to add back that $17,000 to the dispatch budget and remove the $162,440 one-time cost for WCC. So your total amendments will be negative $145,440, bringing your levy now to $11,877,793. So that's the difference between what was in the public hearing notice and what we'll be presenting tonight. So when we talk about the city budget, what's included in the city budget is the main fund you hear about most of the time, which is our main operating fund, or the general fund. Also included in there, though, are special revenue funds, which include our impact fees, our garbage and refuse, the CDA, tourism, watershed, those sorts of things. The debt service fund, which really is just a holding place for our debt payments for the year. Our capital projects fund, which is where we keep the funds that we're going to spend the following year for infrastructure, building and grounds, vehicles, those kind of things. And then internal service funds, which includes risk management, technology, and our fleet. When we start putting together the budget, one of the biggest influences to the revenue of the city is the state levy limits. So we talk about that at the beginning of the budget every year. Our levy is, by state law, allowed to only grow by 0%, or the percent of net new construction in the city from the prior year. Any additional levy adjustments, the only other additional levy adjustments that are allowed are for paying your debt service, for annexations to the city, TIF closures, and the use of prior year unused levy capacity, which the city does have. When we take a look at that levy limit constraint, we look at net new construction. So how much growth did the city have in 2018? That's counted on our January 1 of 2019 and is the number we use for net new construction. So our number that year was 3.92%, or an $87 million increase in the value of properties within the city. That number allows the city to increase their levy by $380,888. When we take a look at the general fund budget, some of the changes from last year or constraints that we may have include, for revenue changes, we did take a little bit of a decrease in state aids this year, but we're getting an increase in our cable franchise fees, an increase in our transportation aids payment, and we've seen an increase in interest revenue for next year. Expenditure changes include a decrease in city attorney costs, and that's 2 years in a row now. A decrease in technology costs across the board for the city departments. COLA increase for employees at 2.5%, an increase in health insurance of 4%. We had a large decrease last year and a smaller increase this year. And then the budget does include 1 new police detective.
Could you say the first one on the right-hand column again?
Decrease in state aids? No. All right. When we put together the budget, the city has adopted a strategic plan. And within the budget are funding for some of the initiatives within the strategic plan, so we take a look at those. One of our first goal is to provide a safe and secure community. So the budget includes funding to help construct the public safety building, for the addition of a police detective, funding for the Western Lakes Fire District, and to drill the city's new well number 8. Our second strategic goal is to improve and maintain our infrastructure and facilities. In 2020, that includes additional funding for our Enhanced Street Program, which is really designed to improve our street ratings and to save us money over time in reconstruction costs for streets. We're making an investment in stormwater and in streets in our projects for Forest Street and their Thackeray Trail extension, and necessary bridge maintenance. Third goal is to improve our quality of life assets. Excuse me. The inclusion of funding here is through grants, through the TIF, design and planning of the boat launch at City Beach, a contribution to the Watershed Adaptive Management Program, the inclusion of Blaine Street Tennis Court, improvements to Chaffee Road Park. Focus on economic development includes funding for facade grants downtown, preparation of the historic property inventory, some funding for the sister city initiatives, and funding for the 2020 census effort. And 5 is enhance the effectiveness of our city and government. The budget does include funding for a market study wage adjustment for our crew staff, and technology enhancements, including software that is citizen-facing. We'll talk more about that in January. Within the budget, in our capital projects budget, between the city and the utilities, total projects for 2020 total $13,275,403. $2,100,000 of that is included within the levy. The rest of the funding comes from other sources, including impact fees, utility reserves, some miscellaneous sources, and then, of course, from debt. So we'll look at debt issue in 2020 of about just over $3 million. Speaking of debt, the city debt capacity, that's one of the things we talk about. We talk about how much we have outstanding and what's our capacity. So we have a legal debt capacity, a certain amount that we can only go up to for debt outstanding in the city, and that's 5% of our equalized value. For the city of Oconomowoc, that amount is $122 million. Currently, our city debt outstanding is $20,500,000. making our debt about 18% of their capacity available. The 2020 debt budget includes principal and interest payment for current obligations or those that are due within the year 2020. In 2019, we are issuing about $7.2 million in debt. The, excuse me, the levy for this year increased $249,504 for debt service payments. So let's take a look at the bottom line, tax levy. The 2019 levy increase that we were allowed to take was $704,912. We call it the 2019 levy for the 2020 budget. The actual proposal here is for $560,585. So we were allowed 3.92% net new construction, about $380,000. We made that additional levy adjustment for debt, and there's a tiny adjustment for personal property in there of $251,000. So with our proposal of $560,585, we have unused capacity that we did not use, that we were allowed to use, of $72,257. So our total tax levy that the council will approve tonight is $11,877,793, about a 4.9% increase over last year. So then we take a look at how does that affect the city tax rate. So the levy includes a city tax rate. The tax rate increase from that last year to this year is 1.93%. Last year was $5.62 per $1,000 of value. This, in 2019 mill rate, will be $5.73, or an 11-cent increase over last year. 4 cents of that goes for operating and capital and 7 for debt. The total tax change amounts to about $27 on the average $245,000 home. So the other thing, I talked about our additional capacity. We had additional capacity last year too. So our total additional capacity available, that's available for us to use, you know, if you added something this year or if we're saving it for something next year, but right now the additional capacity available is $144,327, about half of that coming from last year and then the other half from this year. I like to show you the comparison from year to year, and then this year I had to add in the public hearing too because it's different from the end proposal, but from 2019 to 2020. So from the public hearing notice, we were looking at a levy change from 562 to 579, which would have been 17 cents. But with the amendments that you'll make tonight, as I said, it'll go from 562 to 573, a change of 11 cents over last year. And then lastly, let's take a look at how we compare across the state and the county. So when we take a look at this, you can see what this shows you. There's 190 municipalities in the state of Wisconsin. So if you take a look at our state ranking, we're 184. 190 is the lowest tax rate in the state. So we're at 184. We are at the 97th percentile for having low taxes in the state. And we've maintained that over, I put 5 years up there for you, but it's been longer than that. In our local ranking, we're number 166, 88%. So we're gonna take a look down here. The blue line here is city taxes. These are the other taxing jurisdictions that push up here, the cities on the top. So the red line is the county average. So we're right about in the county, about 50% here, or 57%. We're right about at the county average. About half of the people are higher than us, about half of the people are lower than us. For the state, you can see the state, here's the average for the state taxes. Here's the city of Oconomowoc. So I just thought you might like to see that and see how we compare around the state and the county. And that's all I've got.
Great, thank you. We'll be acting on this later in the meeting. Now I'm going to open up for public comment. If you have comment on this, on the budget, please fill out a card. Floss Whalen.
Thank you.
I just wanted to remind you that those of us who were at the, excuse me, those of us who were at the last council meeting and asked you to save the dispatch system in Oconomowoc said we're willing to pay the extra taxes for it. And Alderman Ellis said when he was questioned by Alderman Rosick, how are you going to justify this? Said he wasn't going to. He was keeping a list of all of us who had said we were willing to pay taxes and was going to refer the questioners. And I asked him tonight if I was on that list because it's an easy thing to justify. But I did want to remind you that we did not say cut the rest of the budget. We didn't say mess up the rest of the budget. We said this is a service that we're willing to pay more for. What you have before you is a budget that has been cut many times before it's reached this point. As you know, the budget process goes year-round. The department heads submit, used to be April 1st, it probably still is. Then it gets cut some more, then you take a look at it and you cut it some more. And so what you've got here is pretty much the kind of ideal budget this community needs. When the state, in its wisdom, as our city attorney sometimes says, decided to go with levy limits, it did two things to us. One, it said you can't tax anymore, but it also warned you that if you don't tax enough in a given year, if you don't levy enough in a given year, you're going to cheat your whole future because your levy is based in effect on what you do. I recently read an article, I think it may have been in the municipality, of municipalities in the state that are really caught now. Either they started in on this new system when they had low budgets, or somewhere along the line they didn't realize what was happening and they cut their budgets. And they're now at the point where they are either cutting vital services or they are borrowing for things they should not be borrowing for. And a number of these communities are not growing because you do get additional revenues for growth. As a result, you know, they're not able to put into their communities the kind of improvements needed to attract the growth. So it's really a vicious cycle. I don't think it's a good fiscal policy. I think it's irresponsible, but we're stuck with it. Oconomowoc, I think, has seen all along where it was going with it and has done a good, sensible job with its budgets. I hope you will continue. I just wanted to point out that in 1976, when I came into office, looking at those where we are now, we had the highest tax rate in the county, and we were very high on the state level. We have managed to keep our tax rate at what is a very acceptable level while offering a high level of services. And I want to credit some good decisions by councils, but mostly for the fact that we have so improved our staff. And we have a lot of efficiency in the city. So I'm saying you've got a good budget. Don't nickel and dime it to death tonight. Go with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the budget? Seeing none, we will close that public hearing and move on to the next one. The next public hearing is, what? Go ahead. Yeah, but you didn't have anything on the budget there.
Well,
This is just on the budget.
okay, then I'll just say one really silly thing I just found humorous, that you took out the $1,000 for the doggy bags, but you guys all approved the fact that dogs can now be in the parks. They kind of don't go hand in hand.
Next item,
Hope not.
well, dogs don't live in the park.
I wouldn't want it to go hand in hand with this, yeah.
City of Oconomowoc Comprehensive Plan 2050. The purpose of the hearing is to hear public comment on the application to update the City of Oconomowoc Comprehensive Plan 2050. Jason?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'll just give a brief introduction here. Tonight is the final public hearing for the city's comprehensive plan update. I want to thank all of those who helped in this process. It's been a lengthy process. As you will hear tonight, this has been a publicly driven process. It resulted in a 150-page document that you've all have seen and received. This plan complies with all the state requirements that the city must have a plan. The Plan Commission held a public hearing last week. The Plan Commission did adopt a resolution giving their support to this document. In your packets this evening is an ordinance. That is how the council takes official action on this document. Now I'm going to turn it over to Paul from SRF. He is with SRF Consulting. He assisted the city with this process, and he will provide you with an overview of this plan and the process. Thank you, Paul.
Good evening, and thank you, Jason. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity tonight to present on the Oconomowoc Comprehensive Plan Update. As Jason mentioned, it's been a 14 or 15-month process. It's been really exciting for me to come into your community and get to know your residents, the way your community operates. It's really a neat place to be. Just a little bit about what a comprehensive plan is. For those that don't know, it's a guiding document for bodies like this to make decisions and to go from. It is updated every 10 years, and it looks forward 20 years out, at least 20 years. This particular plan, we've taken it, it's called the Comprehensive Plan 2050. We've decided to take a little bit longer look out there, getting into some of the elements that may or may not quite hit yet in the next few years, things like autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, things of that, and just kind of put the plans in action to guide those things if they do and when they do occur. As Jason mentioned, this is a citizens plan or residents plan. Public engagement efforts and the community input has really been the driver of the plan. This little information graphic I got up here, the notification, events, and participation, I kind of look at it as the how, the what, and the who. How we messaged it in, how we tried to get the word out that we're doing this plan over the 14, 15-month process, the significant amount of events that we undertook to make sure we were able to hear residents and committee input. And then obviously the who is 1,250 residents, specific residents that were able to comment and provide input on the plan. So this cog graphic goes over the 9 chapter elements that are required by state statute. This plan includes these 9 elements as well as an introduction. So 10 chapter elements. We use this really as the required elements where we first start with each of the chapters with a vision statement, something we really want to go by as we build the goals and objectives and the implementation measures for each of these topics. So the chapters that we are covered here on the screen, there's the 9 that we mentioned, how we laid out the document in 10. And I guess the next couple slides, I'm just going to show how the goals and objectives and implementation measures are being used. This document also goes through an inventory of things that are in place now and some suggestions on, levels of when we might need 4-lane expansion and things to that nature, but really tying in the goals and objectives. So just a quick reminder, a goal statement, it's a desired outcome, and the objectives are subsets of the goal. So as we lay out the document, we have the vision statement to work around, build goals and objectives upon different things within the plan, and we set some implementation action timelines for those. So we say they're ongoing, a short-term, a mid-term, or a long-term type of goal. And we kind of wind this in a couple different ways. This example here shows a housing goal. And the goal would be to provide a variety of housing types, designs, densities, and price ranges to meet the needs of the residents of varying incomes, ages, lifestyles, and patterns. And then we do that by having specific implementation items, taking a look at this housing stock for life cycle options, routinely going back to this graphic here on the right and saying, yes, accessory dwelling units, they might be really good for somebody in the millennial stage and then kind of come full circle around and may be appropriate later in life as well. So just kind of readdressing the housing in this particular example. Another future land use map is one of the most often viewed documents, and it really sets the stage based on the plan. So as it considers the population increase that Oconomowoc is potentially facing over the next 20 years or so. Obviously, DOA, Wisconsin Department of Administration, has 2040 projections. So we use that number as a baseline to say, based on the population of residents there today, what might that look like in 20 years? In this case, we're planning for about 3,500 residents over the next 22 years, looking at where they might, or where development should occur, not only within infill, and then the main key development areas, places like Olympia, Pabst Farms, and the East Wisconsin corridors, but also looking into that extraterritorial plat review area, those areas identified by the hatching on the north side of town. And really making sure that we have the right housing types in place to support that population in the future. And my last slide here just kind of goes over the process update over the last 15 months. So what you have was a draft plan that was taken into the room next door here and reviewed by the department heads. We spent a full day here going through each of the chapter areas once we had all that feedback from residents. Spend a day here sharing that with department heads, getting their sign off on their specific areas of expertise. This whole process was led by a steering committee. The steering committee was involved 3 times during the process. After the initial public engagement and data collection, when we established the goals and objectives, and then again, as a body to review the draft plan. This was brought to an open house format, brought up, presented, laid out for the open house for the public. We had a 30-day comment period in which we received no comments from the public. So another good example of a plan that we feel was written really well and had a lot of community support and backing from the steering committee. Plan Commission, as Jason mentioned, we were here last Wednesday, got a resolution for that, recommendation for approval on that, and we're here tonight for potential adoption of the final plan. So with that,
Thank you.
I'll leave it. Thank you.
I'll open it up for public comment. I don't have any cards on, that want to talk about this, but is there anybody that would like to make a comment on this specific public hearing? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and move on to the next one. The next one is Southwoods Subdivision Attachment and Zoning. The purpose of the hearing is to hear public comment regarding the application to attach and establish SR suburban residential zoning on 19 parcels comprising of 40.2 acres.
We have a public hearing, as the mayor's mentioned, it's for the attachment and the creating of zoning at the Southwood subdivision. It's actually broken down into 2 separate items on the agenda this evening. First, we attach, then we create the zoning. So it's a total of 19 parcels. It consists of 40.2 acres of land, and this is all coming into the city. It's currently in the village of Summit. It's based on the boundary agreement from the year 2000 that this area was a little bit delayed from some of the other land that came in, and this was to come in. So the area we're talking about is along Southwood Drive, runs from Pabst Road up to West Beach Road. The proposed zoning that staff is recommending tonight in the ordinance is called SR. It stands for Suburban Residential. You can see the area of Southwood is in this white area right here. It's unzoned. It's not in the city. The green is the city boundary. The yellow is SR zoning, so that would be contiguous to the Southwood subdivision of SR. Those lots meet the minimum requirements of the SR zoning. This reddish orange color is commercial, and this is this purple color is business park. So those wouldn't make sense, but the yellow does for this area. The staff recommendation is for the Common Council to approve the ordinance first to attach this to attach the Southwood subdivision of the city. It's more of a technicality. It was already approved in the boundary agreement. The village of Summit is aware of this. They're doing a detachment ordinance just to dot the i's and cross the t's. The Common Council then on the agenda is also asking to establish our own zoning of SR for the suburban residential district. I'd be happy to answer any questions when this is on the agenda.
Thank you. We'll take comments on this now. I have one card, Scott Carter.
Good evening. I'm Scott Carter from 3711 North Southwood Drive, and my purpose tonight is to thank the mayor and the city attorney. We are coming into the city. We were told that we were going to have to change our addresses. At the last couple of meetings, people from the neighborhood have spoken up and said this was going to be a hardship on us. The mayor has listened, has worked with the city attorney, as I understand it. A city ordinance has to be changed, and I think they're working on it, and you'll have to vote on it next month. But I don't want the opportunity to pass without saying thank you and letting you know that we appreciate your efforts.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next public hearing. The next one is on Vespera 2. The purpose of the hearing is to hear public comment on the application to repeal and recreate ordinance 06-0647 that created a planned development on approximately 10.56 acres known as Planned Development PD 706.
Thank you. I'll give a brief overview of this request. It's to create a planned development overlay zoning district. So this does require a public hearing at both the Plan Commission and the Common Council. The location of this overlay district is along St. Andrews Drive between Oconomowoc Parkway and Valley Road. You can see an aerial photo there. Back in 2006, we approved a project with 36 units. 7 of those units were built, so there's 29 left to be built on this area. 2006 happened, some permits were issued, but then 2008 came and the housing market kind of fell and it reverted back to a bank and it hasn't been finished since. So all the utilities are in the ground, some of the roads are there, some are in poor shape that are being reconstructed, but we've been waiting over 10 years. A developer has approached the city and the bank and said, would you like to finish the project, which I think is a great idea to finish this. Again, I want to reiterate there was 29 units remaining on the original plan, and they want to only do 26. So it's actually less dense than what was originally approved in '06. So this is the PD overlay. It's a little tricky to see on here, so I'm going to show you some things. The yellow is the existing units, general locations of where the existing units are. There's 7 units. There's 3 duplexes and 1 single-family home. The black line represents a public roadway. All the other roads would be private and will remain private. The applicant tonight would like to construct 13 duplexes for a total of 26 units. The duplexes would be shown there as we speak. The one that I want to point out that's interesting because the Plan Commission had discussion about the driveway widths is this driveway right here is a 3-car garage, and it's the only one going out to the public road that's 3-car. There was concerns about there's a request for exemptions, which PDs allow for zoning exemptions to have greater than 20 feet for driveway widths. These are duplexes. Some of these share driveways. That's the only one, and the Plan Commission said, you know, we don't mind having wider driveways on these private roads back here and in here, but we want any driveway that abuts the public street of St. Andrews to be in line with our code of 20 feet. So that's an amendment that was put into the ordinance that you have in your packet. There's going to be some stormwater facilities constructed as well. Now, the biggest concern with this project was the architecture. If you're all familiar with that Tuscan Italian architecture with a lot of the tile roofs and the gutter systems are different. I mean, so they had to really try to work closely with the neighborhood of the existing condominium association and try to bring something in that was compatible with what's out there, the stucco and the details that are out there. So I wanted to just show you some of the architecture. The applicant has met on several occasions with the homeowners association. The new association is going to be completely separate. And they've came to a compromise of this style of architecture, and they have taken these to the Architectural Commission, and they've shown these, and these were all approved by the city's Architectural Commission. You can see they do have some of the features. I won't get into all the details, but just it gives you a sense that the majority of the units out there will be single-storied like this, and they'll kind of blend in. So this will really finish off the site well. So the Plan Commission did review this. They held a public hearing, and they recommended the Plan Development Overlay Ordinance, which you're acting on tonight. And then they also approved what's called the General Development Plan, and that's the lighting, the landscaping, and grading and utility plans. So that you don't have to act on, but they did recommend the Plan Commission. In your ordinances, there is an updated ordinance. The Plan Commission had a few suggestions and updates. I did some bold and strike through so you could see for your convenience what the changes were. So I'll be happy to answer any questions later in the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. I'll take public comment now. Craig Caliendo.
Hello, my name is Craig Caliendo. I am the applicant. I own Windale Investments and also Kingsway Homes. We've been building the side-by-side ranch-style condos out at Pabst Farms for the last few years. We've seen robust demand out there, but some of the feedback we've been getting is people looking for actually larger, slightly larger units and units that accommodate 3-car garages. So we were familiar with this Vespera site. We thought it lent itself, with the infrastructure already there, to this type of new condominium concept that we had. So about a year ago, we started working with some of the existing owners of the Vespera 1 project, primarily through 2 gentlemen on their board of directors, one of whom is here tonight. And over the course of several months, we came up with what I won't even really call a compromise, but more of a cooperative joint venture on coming up with architecture that satisfied them and worked for our vision. So what we wanted to develop out there was these single-story, side-by-side ranch-style condominiums that were a little bit upscale from the ones that we're doing out at Village Crossing, offer sunroom, 3-car garages, and the type of architecture that we came up with would fit with and blend with a style of architecture that's out there right now. It's not exactly the same, but when you drive through the completed development, you'll get the same look and feel of the type of units that are out there right now. So we went with a terracotta color roof. It's a higher dimensional shingle than what we usually use in our Kingsway division, but it's not the replicated tile roofs that are on the existing buildings. We're using a low maintenance hardy plank siding, which is a stucco. It looks like stucco. It's not real stucco because it's lower maintenance, but it has a stucco appearance. We're using natural stone that looks like the natural stone that's on the existing buildings that are out there. We use the bronze windows, and also we're using steel garage doors, but it's a wood look steel. So the look and feel of all of these units really blends with the look and feel of the units that are out there. So we thought it was a nice collaboration between the people that live out there right now and us coming in as the developers. As far as landscaping and lighting, we're going to do landscaping that's similar to the landscaping that's out there. We custom designed the landscaping around each of the buildings, and we submitted with our packet a sample landscape plan around one of the buildings. We won't have any street lighting, but we'll have coach lights and lights along the garages of each of the buildings that'll be photo-sensored, so that'll be the lighting for the development. As I said, the infrastructure is already in, so sewer and water is in, and actually all the private road system is in, but it was the initial course of asphalt. So we've reached a cost-sharing agreement with the existing owners. Some of the units that are out there right now use part of those private drives, but we reached an agreement where we have a reciprocal easement so we can all use all the private drives. As part of our development, we're going to improve those roads and put the final course of asphalt on, and then going forward, we'll share in the cost of maintaining those drives. And again, as Jason mentioned, the driveway widths, we're fine with the one concession with the driveway that's coming out to St. Andrews. We can narrow that down to the 20-foot width. So we're hoping to gain your support for this project. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Ken Ulicki?
My name is Ken Ulicki. I'm the president of the Vespera Condominium Association. I represent the 7 existing homeowners. We first became aware last December that the land adjacent to our units was under contract. Since that time, we've had the opportunity to meet with the developer on several occasions. He has kept us apprised of his plans as they developed and given us the opportunity to voice our concerns. And based on our input, he's made several changes. All of our existing homeowners are aware of the current plans, and I am here tonight to indicate that we support the current plan development. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments regarding this? Seeing none, we will close that public hearing, move on to regular business. First item is approval of the meeting minutes for October 15th, 2019. We need a motion to approve the minutes.
So move.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Now we'll go on to comments and suggestions from citizens. If you have a comment, please fill out a blue card. Try to limit your comments to 3 minutes or less, and don't repeat what somebody else has said on the same subject. First person up is Diane.
Not quite as silly a comment as before. I'm curious to know, do we have, it was brought to my attention today that we do not have in the city a city refuse dump for like leaves, things like that. And that we're one of the few municipalities in Waukesha County that does not have one. Does anybody know if that's really true? That we have no place that is true? It is true. It might be something to look at. I mean, you know, especially if this is a perfect year for it, because I don't know about most people's streets, but because of all the rain and all the wet, there are so many leaves and things that have not been collected and not picked up. People can't mow their lawns, they can't rake their leaves because it got cold and so wet, and then it snowed, and then it thawed. And so it's kind of a big mess out there. And that was brought to my attention today by somebody who normally takes care of my yard, and I had him hand rake and do everything today instead of with a mower. And he said he didn't know what to do with any of this stuff because there's no pickup now until December. And when you look around my neighborhood, it's exactly like that. There's leaves and junk and everything because nobody's been able to get out there and mow for the last 2 or 3 weeks. Along Allen Road, if you're familiar, between Hickory Hill on Concord and where it turns into Allen Road, they put in a bicycle path maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I'm not sure exactly when it was. That is not, I brought this up, I think, last year. It is not something that's ever shoveled, quote, snowplowed by the city. I'm not sure if it's because it's deemed a bike path. It is an incredibly dangerous street when there's snow. And when Delafield put their bike path in, they take care of that bike path that goes all along. There are kids out there all the time. You can't walk on the bike path because it's not shoveled and because a lot of it is in the shade, so it never melts. It just stays as ice. And we don't maintain, as a city, any of that. You know, on the, if you're on part of Concord near Hickory Hill going north is plowed because there's a regular sidewalk there over the bridge. But going south, it's not taken care of, and along Allen Road, it's not taken care of. So I just personally think it's a really dangerous place for kids, and there are a lot of older people there with dogs that have no place except in the street on a narrow, I consider a narrow. So it might be something to consider thinking about whether the city could go ahead and plow that. I was curious to know whatever happened. I had read that the bike tunnel kind of got put on the back burner for right now. I know it was dug and it was sealed up. Is that back in the budget? I didn't see it in the budget. Is that back in?
This isn't question and answer, this is just for you to make statements.
Okay, I made this comment, and again, it may not be you, but I did write to the fire chief about So we have fire trucks from different companies that are now merged into one, and we have yellow trucks and we have red and black trucks. The red and black trucks are definitely not nearly as visible as the yellow trucks. So going forward, I don't know if any of you have any input on this with the fire department, but I almost watched an accident last week. If their lights are on, you can see them. If their lights are not on and they're not blinking, you do not see those red and black trucks. You know, years ago, as far back as when I was a kid, fire trucks were all red, but they were bright red. Now they're this, you know, dark, boring black and red color, and they're not very visible. And my last thing was a request also that I requested last year, that the city install more benches along 67, along like LaBelle, from where you have the swinging bench now going to the bridge. There's so much opportunity. There are hundreds of people that walk there every single day, and there's still one bench to sit on, and that's the swinging one, which basically allows 2 people to sit on. It would be really nice. You probably have room there for 5 more benches. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jill Persick.
I'm Jill Persick, 701 York Imperial Drive in Oconomowoc. I'm a resident, and you all know I'm against 5G wireless technology. And this comprehensive plan kind of allowed me to go back and look at some history from Oconomowoc, and I discovered that we really are a model community for energy. You know, in 2008, I'm just on the record here, in 2008, 10 communities from all of the state of Wisconsin received an Energy Independent Community Grant from the Wisconsin Office of Energy Independence, and we were awarded one of those grants. And it's a lead by example, you know, us being a model city, and it was a grant from the power supplier in 2008 to form a conservation team for the Oconomowoc Utilities Service Area. And the mission of the Lead by Example team is, it says, to instill a strong conservation ethic in the community while demonstrating the effectiveness of energy efficiency and renewable resource development. We really are a model. I mean, we're like a leading community recognized in Wisconsin, and I was even unaware of that. So, you know, kudos to us. Looking in the comprehensive plan, I noticed that in a lot of the documents that the city puts out that mentions 5G wireless technology, which I'm not in favor of, it mentions that there are many pros and cons. So I know that we're still learning about the pros and cons of wireless technology. And it does mention in our documents, these higher frequency waves also have difficulty bypassing objects and walls. So I'm not going to talk a lot about that, but what I want to point out is because of our history of energy conservation and being a leader, a leading community in that, I think 5G wireless technology we're on a collision course with energy conservation and our real commitment to energy conservation. Just in doing research for this, I found, you know, the previous chair of the FCC, Thomas Wheeler, he said that a while ago that in a 5G world, each person will own about 5 to 6 wireless devices, which, heck, we probably have that now. And, sorry, I lost my place here. Add to that the millions of new small cells being deployed to accommodate all the digital traffic of the Internet of Things. And he says it becomes evident that it will take an inordinate amount of energy just to produce the Internet of Things. So I'm just here really to urge you to look at combining and you know, bringing some synchronicity to our energy conservation policies and how that's not compatible with 5G wireless technology. Thank you.
Thank you. Bloss?
This is the first time in my life that I've spoken twice, and I don't have a voice tonight, wouldn't you know it? I wanted to say what a happy surprise it was to turn on public radio and hear our city clerk speaking. She is not only our city clerk, but she's obviously the president of the State Clerks Association, and she was talking about elections. She was pleasant. She was articulate. She knew all the answers. And she said good things about Oconomowoc and about her fellow staff workers and even about the council. I thought she did us proud, and I just wanted to say that tonight. Thank you for representing us so well.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll move on. Next item is the consent agenda. Tonight we have a couple items, licenses, electric utility easement, and a treasurer's report. So we need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Okay, moving on, Finance Committee. First item is consider act on a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of $7.2 million in general obligation promissory note for the police facility project. We need a motion to approve the resolution.
Make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Lori?
On October 1st, the city council authorized staff to put together, authorized the staff to put together the issuance and closing documents for $7.2 million worth of short-term borrowing through First Financial Center here in Oconomowoc. So tonight before you are those closing documents and the terms of that loan. So we are looking at short-term financing. The term of the loan is actually 18 months. However, we are looking to close out that loan in the first quarter of next year when the city council prepares its long-term debt process is finished and they're prepared to issue the longer-term debt. In the meantime, this loan is 2.5% interest and is put together as a construction draw loan. So that means that we will pay interest only on the amount that we spend between now and the time that we finish our long-term financing.
That's it?
I think so.
Okay, any questions? Go ahead, Lou.
How is interest calculated on the money that's borrowed? Is it daily? Is it
Interest
monthly?
is always daily, yes.
Yep.
Any other comments?
On only the amount that we actually
Correct,
use,
borrowed.
yes.
Yep.
Go ahead, Kevin.
What bank are we using, please?
First Financial Center here in Oconomowoc.
Did you go out to any other banks?
Actually, we did not. This is the bank that the city does business with on a daily basis. This is short-term borrowing, so we did not go out and talk to other banks. When the city prepares its long-term debt, it will take it out to market, and all banks can bid on the city's borrowing.
But when you say short-term, what are you referring to?
Well, less than a year is short-term and usually. In this case, we are looking at, the plan right now is for the city council to refinance this debt in the spring of 2020. So it'll be about 4 or 5 months, probably.
Oh, we're referring to interest only. Are we paying only interest, or are we paying interest plus principal?
Okay, so we're not going to pay anything until we refinance, and then we will pay interest on the amount of money that we have borrowed between Friday of this week and the day that we refinance the loan in the spring next year.
So
And the
we're only
interest rate
paying
is
interest only.
2.5%. That's correct.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Nay.
Next item, consider act on a resolution approving a one-year contract extension with Grota Appraisals LLC for 2020 assessment services. We need a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Go ahead.
Okay. The city currently has a contract with Grota Appraisals, which expires at the end of this year. In the city's long-term plan, we are looking to do a reval of the city, but that would be for 2021. So we have a one-year gap. The current contract that we have with Grota does allow for 2 separate one-year extensions. We are requesting that the council approve a one-year extension with Grota Appraisals and then put forth an RFP for the reval for 2021.
Thank you. Questions? Go ahead.
What exactly do they do for us? What's their purpose?
The assessor's job is to put the property values on all the property in the city every year. So they, they work through their formulas and they take a look at the economic changes throughout the state, and they actually assign values to all the properties within the city.
So they establish the values?
They do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Okay, next item is consider or act on a resolution to contract for professional services for a labor attorney. Need a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
So the next 4 resolutions are going to be for continuing contract for professional services on as-needed basis. The first one is for the labor attorney. We currently use Ron Stadler as our labor attorney on an as-needed basis. He has kept his rate for us pretty consistent throughout the years at actually quite a discount. All of the professional service contracts that we're talking about tonight are services that are as-needed basis when something comes up in the city. These contracts or the amounts that we pay to these professional services is generally less than $15,000 a year. In most cases, a lot less than that. But once, when we use these services, if it becomes a project, the council would know about it, and that would be a different contract that we would have with them, just so you know.
And what did we spend with the labor attorney?
He's cheaper than our regular attorney.
Oh,
Well, worth it.
What was our bill last year?
Last year, we paid $1,422.
Oh, it's a minimal amount.
Yeah.
Any questions? Seeing none, call the roll.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Next item is consider acting a resolution to contract for professional services for a land surveyor and property description services. We need a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second?
This is another continuing resolution. The service this time is for land surveyor and property description services, which the city needs from time to time. The contract would be with Land Tech Surveying, and their rates are in your resolution.
And they are a local company.
And they are a local company, yes. Thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Next item is consider acting a resolution to contract for professional services for retail development. Should I leave the rest out? We need a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second?
Go ahead.
Okay, so this contract, professional service retail development consultant, we have used Larry Kildoff in the past as we worked with Pabst Farms. We haven't used his services for a while. We haven't, made a payment to him in several years. But with renewed interest in the Pabst Farm area and that retail corridor, we would like to renew this resolution.
Go ahead.
How much has he received since last
We haven't paid
payment?
him since 2013.
Excellent. Yep.
And hopefully we'll use it more with renewed interest in the area down there.
That's what we're hoping, yes.
That's great.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Okay, last item is consider act on a resolution for professional services for a utility attorney. We need a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
So this resolution would be services provided by Attorney Galucci from Boardman and Clark. This would be for specialized utility legal issues. We used her this last year. Our bills came to just over $11,000. The year before, about $1,400. So these are issues that come up, you know, as needed, but needs the specialized attorney for
What were some of the
utility.
things that we used them for last year, maybe,
Yeah, I'm
Joe?
going to have Joe tell you about that.
Like the pole attachment
Full
agreements and
attachment
things of
agreement.
that nature.
I know what they,
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay.
And currently, we're negotiating, well, you come and tell. I had it all of a sudden.
Currently, we're using Anita Galucci for the We Energies Southwood annexation and those efforts negotiating with We Energies. And then last year was the pole attachment, as
Okay.
Sarah referenced.
Go ahead.
As long as you're up there, just for public record, if you could give some of her background that you provided during
Okay.
committee meeting, I think it'd be relative.
As was said, Anita Galucci works for Broadman and Clark. Anita also works, there's 81 municipal electric utilities in the state of Wisconsin. The organization that holds us all together is the Municipal Electric Utility Association, MEUW, and they do a lot of work for us in the legal aspects, and we all pool together, and we get efficiencies through that. And she is the attorney that they have, and there's efficiencies in that process. So she's very expertise that cell tower sightings and leasing of those municipal sites, and she works a lot on that types of stuff also, besides annexation takeovers and things like that.
Uniquely qualified.
Very
highly-
uniquely
highly
qualified,
specialized.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Moving on to personnel, first item is consider act on a on a reclassification request for utility purchasing coordinator. We need a motion to approve the reclassification.
Moved.
Second.
Tony?
Okay, so for 2019, the city received 3 employee wage reclassification requests. As you may be aware, the city has an established formal process for employees and managers to utilize when requesting higher levels of compensation for their hard work. I put information in the memo in your council packet about the process, so I won't get into that unless you have some questions there. Carlson Detman Consultant, the city's compensation consultant, reviewed all 3 requests and is recommending only one position, the utility purchasing coordinator position, be reclassified. Carlson Detman is recommending the position be reclassified 1 level from grade 9 to grade 10. The end result is a 59-cent increase per hour, so it's very minimal. The assignment of 2 office employees to the utility coordinator position and the additional responsibilities of higher level work, project management, software management, and et cetera, are the primary reasons for the higher level reclassification recommendations. For the position, efficiencies were created in software, workflow, technology, and ordering have allowed us the ability to restructure this position and take on these additional duties. The restructuring reclassification is really a win-win for the utility, as the utility has the talent on staff and the person in the position has the ability to do it and perform the higher level work and supervisory responsibilities. So with that, I gave you some financial numbers there. It's 59 cents an hour. With wages, benefits, taxes for the year, it's a total increase of $1,384 coming out of the utility fund. So our motion is we're asking to approve the utility purchasing coordinator position to grade 10.
Thank you. Questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman, excuse me, I apologize. Alderman Stray.
Okay, I was just leaving.
I apologize.
Yeah, sure, I'll do that.
Alderman Kavieski.
Got me all
still-
confused as usual.
Still aye, okay. Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Next item is consider act on creation and hiring of a cable installation grounds person lead position and cable installer grounds person. We need a motion to approve the creation of these two positions.
So moved.
Second.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll give you a quick summary, and I'll have Joe here for backup and questions, given this is his department. I told Personnel Committee this is really about three things. The first thing is hiring 2 cable installers, ground persons, basically a lead installer and a cable installer, replacing a contractor, and saving money, which overall sounds good to us. That's why we're excited to bring this forward. The utility is looking to hire its own cable installation crew and purchase its own boring rig, replacing the overall need for contracting services, resulting in a decent-sized savings and other benefits for the utility. And I passed you out a cost estimation of the savings. So on September 4th, the Personnel Committee recommended the addition of 2 cable installers pending completed job description, formal rate, wage classification recommendation from the city's compensation consultant. The job descriptions have been completed. Formal wage classifications have been received. The formal wage classifications that we received from Carlson Detman are recommending the following. Grade 1 for the electric wage schedule for the cable installer, which is $37.33 an hour to $48 an hour. Grade 2 for the lead cable installer, ground person, and that's $39.20 to $50.40 per hour. The end result is still a savings for the utility. So in council, we're asking for the motion to approve the hiring of the 2 cable installers, ground persons. It's overall, it saves money, and then there's benefits to the utility as well.
Comments? Go ahead.
This was talked about in Utility Committee and Personnel Committee as it required both the equipment to operate and the operators to make it work. And it's a overall cost savings in providing greater control for our utilities and providing service. So it's a great program, and I appreciate the look at it by your utilities and by personnel. The long-term benefit to our community, a short-term benefit, will be realized probably as early as next year, I would think.
Yeah, we hope so. And I thank Joe for bringing it forward, because it took a lot to bring it forward, and he's been thinking about it for the last 2 years, and he's proposed it to Sarah and I, so it definitely is a good thing and a good move forward.
Any other, go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, I agree with you, Lou. We did talk about this quite a bit. There's quite a few bills that come through when we contract out to have this work done. It'll be good to get it done in-house at times when we need it, not when it's convenient for the contractor and things like that. So I support this as well.
Other comments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to protection and welfare. Tonight we have the hearing, we have a hearing on intent of revocation for the 2019-2020 Class B alcohol beverage license for Magna LLC. I'll turn it over to Stan, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so I think you are all aware of the fact that this issue has come before the Common Council for consideration in the past. I think the applicant was well aware of the fact that there was concerns on the part of the Common Council as to whether or not this particular establishment, which is at 965 Cannon Gate Road, known as the Dugout or the Zone, was actually in operation. Annually, licenses are issued. It was issued this year, but immediately there were concerns that it was issued to an establishment that was closed. So as a result of that, the clerk, at your direction, to keep an eye on it, sent police officers out to investigate. So under our ordinance, 1204L, which states, if any licensee shall suspend or cease doing business for a period of 90 consecutive days or more, his or her Class B license shall be subject to revocation by the Common Council after public hearing. Suspension or cessation of the business for a period of 90 consecutive days or more constitutes cause for revocation. So under the statute, what is involved is a hearing, a due process hearing where the clerk gives notice of the intent to revoke. You are the jurors, and you are here to make a determination on behalf of the city as to whether or not, A, the city has established that the cessation of business for 90 days or more has in fact occurred, and B, what do you want to do about it? So the way that procedure will go, the city presents evidence, and the evidence will be through your clerk, who's responsible for managing alcohol licenses in the city. Aldermen can ask questions of the city, of the clerk. The applicant, who I do believe is here, can ask questions of the clerk. And then the applicant can appear and provide testimony to you, can call others to provide testimony for you. Then I guess I will do a statement at the end summarizing what I heard as far as the city's position and whether they established that the place was closed for more than 90 days, and the applicant can do the same. And after that, the council will determine whether to revoke the license. Pretty much as simple as that. So at this point in time, we would have our city clerk provide some information. Diane, you are the person on behalf of the city in charge of dealing with processing applications for liquor license, right?
I am.
And you received the application to renew this particular license for Magna LLC in 2019, right?
I did.
And you, in fact, processed it and issued that license, correct?
Correct.
That license would otherwise expire at the end of June of 2020, correct?
Yes.
You're familiar with the ordinance that I referenced, 12.045L, correct?
Yes.
And you had been directed by this common council to be mindful of this particular establishment, which is why it led your attention to look into the situation as to whether or not it was open or not.
That's correct.
And as a result of that, you, in conjunction with the Oconomowoc Police Department, did an inquiry into whether or not the operation was open or closed. Is that right?
Yes.
And in particular, on or about October 22 of this year, Officer Frankie went out to inquire as to that particular issue.
Yes.
And you have a report of Officer Frankie with regard to that investigation, is that right?
I do.
And in sum, Officer Frankie went out to the establishment, found an individual that was apparently in charge of the entire building, a individual by the name of Tammy Ott, is that right?
Yes.
And that individual informed the officer that she was the only individual that would be the owner or manager, or that she would be the individual running either the zone or the dugout at that establishment,
Yes.
right? And she informed the officer that that operation has not been utilized at all since June 30th, the time of the new issuance of the license, primarily due to the fact that she didn't have her bartender's license. Is that correct?
Yes.
And as a result of receiving that information, you concluded that there's good reason and evidence to come to the conclusion that that operation had been closed for more than 90 days. Is that right?
That's correct.
And as a result, you sent all of the statutory notices relating to this hearing to the applicant,
I did.
and you placed this matter on for a hearing tonight.
I did.
And based upon all of your information and your experience and your involvement with this particular situation, you've come to the conclusion that this operation has been closed for more than 90 days, contrary to our local ordinance. Is that right?
That's right.
And you're recommending to this common council that they revoke that license, correct?
Yes.
Those are all my questions. First, if any alder persons have any questions, they can ask the clerk, and then the applicant can ask questions of the clerk, and then the applicant can proceed with his case, as I have no other witnesses.
Is there any questions from the alderman for the clerk? Go ahead, Lou.
If this license were to be revoked, would the applicant be able to reapply at a later date? And if so, what would that look like?
The applicant would be able to apply after 12 months. So, not before, the current applicant.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Derek.
As a follow-up then, if somebody else were to purchase or want to run that place, would they be able to apply sooner than 12 months?
6 months, they would have to wait 6 months
Okay.
from the date of revocation.
Any other questions? Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
The license that is there now, there's differences between regular and reserved licenses?
Yes, there are.
Is this a regular license?
It is a regular license.
If they lose the regular license and someone acquires it, they would have to apply for a reserve license?
Yes,
And
that's
that-
all we have.
And there is a cost to that?
There is $10,000,
And not, okay.
plus the license fee of $600,
Plus the license
the initial one-time fee of $10,000
We currently have no regular licenses
available. We do
available.
not.
Okay,
Mm-mm.
that's all I had. Any other questions from the Alderman? Questions from the applicant? Jerry, do you have any questions?
Hi, Jerry Went. My home address is W155 Allen Road, Oconomowoc. Magna LLC, 965 Canongate.
I'm going to ask questions for.
You're absolutely true.
This is,
First, if you
Oh,
want to ask
questions? No,
questions of
okay.
her.
you have no questions?
And if you have no questions of her,
Sorry.
then go right into your own
Okay.
case.
It's absolutely true that Tammy was closed from the end of June until the 1st of October. It's a baseball and sports facility. The city has nice facilities, so in the summertime, they don't get used much, so she wasn't there. So therefore, nothing was served by her during that time. I was approached, and we did have a charity event, paintballing, and, you know, it was no income to Magna LLC, and there's no income from the dugout to Magna LLC. I would request that you give us extension because she's normally closed during that time. So I would like to keep the license if we can. A couple things in the officer's statement that I just want to point out were inaccuracies in his third paragraph on the officer's statement. He said he didn't see a refrigerator. If you look at the pictures that were supplied by the officer, you'll see he has one picture that shows the sign with her prices on it. And in the statement, he says that there was no bar or anything. That's right, there isn't a bar. If you look behind that picture with the prices on it, you'll see two offices. The one on the left is Tammy's office. The one on the right is where the liquor is kept, okay? So there's a small refrigerator there. That's, you know, they don't sell a lot. They're only, in fact, they only serve on Wednesday nights when they have adults only. And then if they have a group that would come in and do a private party, and it wasn't during the hours when the kids were around, they would do that. Tammy is the only one that serves. She works Wednesday night. Her mother and some high school kids work at other times, so that room is locked, and even I don't have the key to that room. Another thing that was in there was that, you know, he said that the license that was in that room was expired. That piece of paper was, yes, but the real license is up on the third floor where the bar is, no different than right next door at the Grill 164. They have the license behind the bar, but they have two dining rooms where they serve, you know, so that's why it's not there. We are licensed to serve anywhere on the 150 acres. So that part. So I guess my only thing is, I guess, again, we get nothing from it. It helps Tammy. So, you know, it'd be an economic thing for her. I request that it be not revoked at this time and either an exemption or something for that. In fact, when I drew the license from Diane, I said, you know, they wouldn't be open until the fall. Now, she, Tammy, did let her license expire, and I understand she's taking care of that, but she hasn't served during any time that she didn't have a license. Any questions of me?
Can I ask questions of him?
Yes, you can.
Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? Go ahead, Lou.
Just so everybody can be kind of brought up in regards to some of the materials that are provided to us, we have 5 double-sided sheets of check dates by our police department to see if operations were ongoing, all of which came back negative. Were you aware of the requirement to be in operation? And
Yes, Diana talked to me about it, yes. So I was aware of it. Like I said, I have no problems or qualms with the police report. They weren't there. They physically weren't there, period. So.
Were they aware that even if they were occasionally in operation, they would have been in compliance? And because of the fact that they were consistently out of operation for the period of time in question, that would put them in a bad spot?
I don't know if they were aware of it. They had an agreement with us that if they had a private party that they opened up, you know, they would pay us rent during that time. So they didn't have any private parties during that time. I know that, so no liquor was served during that period. I understand that.
Tom?
Sino always had a lap or two around a pool in his business. I thought you mentioned something out there that they had some parties going on, some private parties. I think you stated there, or whatever.
I was approached in August for Honor Flight, and they split it between Honor Flight and the Fisher House in Milwaukee, a paintball thing out on the grounds. So, you know, I set up a quarter barrel of beer and generator and made pizzas when it was appropriate time.
Yeah, but I thought you said that the girls and whoever, mother or something like that, were doing some other stuff in there too. The gal that were in question.
Tammy, no, they, because the lack of customers during that time, basically we suspended the rent. They weren't physically in the building working, doing any sports activities during that time.
So then, you know, I mean, I got nothing against the honors flight because I was supposed to go on it last week, but I'm all banged up. But that, you know, you served something without any kind of, nobody else had a bartender's license, correct?
No, I am the agent, so I have a license.
You do have one.
Right, I am the agent. The agent can serve.
Yeah, but you still have to have a bartender's
I
license.
did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, no, in order to be an agent, you have to do that.
Kevin?
What is your busiest time of the year?
I'm
sorry, what is your busiest time of the year?
Her time is from now until the springtime. You know, once the June, like I said, she operated through the end of June, and then that's when she came to us and said, you know, hey, the fields out in the city and other baseball fields and facilities were being utilized, and they just didn't have enough revenue coming in to justify it. So we made an agreement with her to suspend the rent during that time.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Charlie.
If the license wasn't in the process of being revoked, what would the business plan be going forward? What would the hours be? What's the plan?
Wednesday, they have senior, not senior, but adult teams come in there and play. I don't have the picture handy, but if it's in your packet, it has the hours on there on Wednesday. So I can find it. I saw it. Just give me a second.
No,
It's on there, but there's hours Wednesday. It's probably, I'm gonna guess, 6 to 11 probably.
The reason I ask is it doesn't, one day a week like that for a couple hours doesn't seem like a real good use of the liquor license for the city.
Well, I guess, I can't argue with that, Mr. Shaw. But the ordinance doesn't state how long you have to be open, okay? I understand that, and like I said, we don't get a dime for it. In fact, it costs us the $600 for the license. So I'm asking kind of as a favor. I understood, but Diane corrected me when we had a meeting when I received the notice. I thought that if we sold the building, if, let's say you bought the building, we could transfer the license to you, okay? Diane said, you can't do that. I would have to surrender the license. You'd have to apply for the license. So I guess it's not a economic incentive for us to keep it, but it, you know, for timing, it'd be nice.
Yeah,
And
the
we would be
license
willing to
does
keep it.
not become this valuable commodity that makes that building worth more.
Well, obviously, if there's a license available, if I had the license, it would be available. In other words, if you bought it, we could go and, at the same time, you'd have the application filled out. I would surrender it to Diane, you'd slip your request in there, so hopefully no one was ahead of you with a request, but, you know.
Are there plans to sell?
Absolutely. We've been working, I'm still waiting to hear on the sewer report. I haven't heard anything about that, but yes, I really thought it'd be sold by now, to tell you the truth. Okay, I have buyers for every single parcel.
Any other questions? Good.
You said that you suspended her rent for a period, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What period was she not paying rent?
July, August, and September.
So that would be the 90 days?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's pretty evident that you weren't open for business. She wasn't open for business then.
That's
so,
correct, sir.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jerry. So, that's,
Well, I think in essence, what you've heard is that the business was not open for business in reality. There may have been an event there. I think it would be fair for you to conclude that in reality, there was no business going on there. Business would connote actual, compensation for dispensation of alcohol, and that didn't occur. So you, I believe, would be free as a council to revoke this permit. You don't have to revoke the permit, it's not mandatory, but I'll leave it up to your wisdom.
okay. Next item on the agenda then is consider act on a resolution ordering revocation of 2019-2020 Class B alcohol beverage license for Magna LLC, doing business as The Dugout. We need a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any other comments? Go ahead.
Yeah, are there any options to provide like a month time to get it up and running and something like that?
That would leave it, that would say you're not gonna revoke it. You would revoke it and you would, if you did not revoke it, then you would come back in 90 days or 30
I mean,
days.
it's clear to me it's been closed for more than 90
Yeah,
days.
it's been
but
closed
much
for a long
more,
time.
and, Okay.
I think from a legal perspective, doing a conditional extension is problematic, and I would not recommend it. If you're going to do something like that, let it go till the end of this year. Indicate that you're, if you don't see progress with that, then we will have to go through a non-renewal hearing just like this, if that is your wisdom and that's what you want to do. But otherwise, I do not recommend that you revoke or you conditionally non-revoke, I guess. It's just very, very, very problematic, and I don't know that it's really countenanced in Chapter 125.
Diane, how many licenses do we currently have?
We have 8 reserve licenses available right now.
And do we have any, well, we don't know if we have any applications. That's not something that you keep on.
I'm aware of potentially one application coming through in the next
so it's-
several months.
It's not like we need the license.
Correct.
Okay. Tom?
Well, you know, the last check here was October 12th. Captain, has anybody been up there during November?
It was October 22 under this record.
October 22, okay, well, I'm just looking at this thing here, the 12th of October, so that's, you know, that's buried into 2 months of the other stuff, but, oh, chief, oh,
There.
that's even better yet.
We've been up there through today. And obviously, there's certain days that we miss depending on calls for service. Since the license has been renewed for Ms. Ott, we've been up there, it's only been open 3 times. Correct.
Finally got a liquor license.
Yes, November 5th it was approved. Correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Any other, go ahead, Lou.
So in the last 13 days, roughly, she's been open 3 times.
Correct.
No?
What is it?
They're open every day. Her mother is usually there about 10 o'clock in the morning, every day. And, you know, so, and as far as, you know, being ready, she's ready to go. When she got her license, she was ready to go. So any Wednesday since then, she would have been serving. Her mother gets dropped off. So if there's no cars, it doesn't mean that there's nobody there.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second, correct?
Yes, we do.
Call the roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg,
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski,
Aye.
Alderman Rogers,
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on, public services, consider acting on a resolution awarding 2020 streets design engineering contract. We need a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Fry?
Thank you, Mayor. For the 2020 street design engineering, we followed the process that was recently approved by this Common Council. We put together an RFP noting that it was specifically a not-to-exceed document. We noted that the design engineer would not be eligible to submit for the construction management portion of the work. We've also requested that they provide hours for us to use within the construction management RFP that would be coming out later, and then also be available to answer questions during the construction, and we had a separate task for that. We followed the hybrid QBS system that we use in the city. We received 5 proposals. They were reviewed by 5 staff members, the city administrator, myself, the assistant director of public works, Kevin Freeber from the wastewater manager, and then also Lucas Kneen, who's the senior utility engineer. Based on our process, you need to receive at least 80% of the points in order to have your cost envelope open. 4 of the 5 reached that, so we opened up the 4 envelopes, factored in the cost as part of the process, and once all of this was done, Rooker and Milky was ranked first. They were the lowest cost at $131,151. We are recommending them for the work. Also, the current policy allows for a 10% contingency, and so I factored in that number to give us the, the new total of $144,266.
This is a not-to-exceed contract.
This is a not to exceed, yes.
Questions? Go ahead.
Once again, I'm still questioning why they were so low, 131,000, thus $144,266. compared to the others at 200,000. I guess I'll just bottom line it here. The young lady in there stated that they know that they can get the job done for that amount and not to exceed that, which is okay. I have no problem with that. And what really concerns me is the fact that then for years, they have been legally taking money from the city that, in essence, legally they could do over and above what they actually put their RFP in for. That's my own opinion. I'm probably wrong. But the point of the fact here is if they can come in with such a low bid and know that they can get the work done for that amount of money, that tells me that in the past they've known what they were doing legally. I'm glad we have this enforced now. I want to thank those who really stepped up, Derek, and I want to thank just for this not to exceed. I really do appreciate that.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Next item is consider act on a resolution approving use of contingency funds for flashing LED pedestrian signs. We need a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
So in 2014, we'd received a request from the people in the Wood Creek subdivision to add some pedestrian crossing improvements at the intersection of Lake Drive, which is right here, and then Goldfinch Way goes to the north, and Renfield goes to the south. At that time, we worked with Waukesha County. We extended the sidewalks to reduce the crossing distance. They provided the pavement marking and the signage. Our request was brought back again this year to both the aldermen and to the staff, requesting that we look at a flashing LED type sign up in this area. The police had looked at it and staff has looked at it, and because of the distance from controlled intersections, that doesn't provide any gaps for pedestrians to cross, the speeds that they go through there, and the DOT's estimate of 4,800 cars, average cars per day in that area showed that it would warrant adding this type of signage. So we were recommending to put that in. Our funds in that account for completing that work this year does not have enough for the $6,500 estimated cost. And so we're asking for the use of contingency funds to purchase and install the lights. So you're voting on the use of the contingency funds.
Questions?
Just a comment.
Go ahead.
Just like to thank you for your work with the county and getting this put in, because it's something they've been requesting for a while, and I know it's been delayed because we didn't really control it, so I appreciate the effort.
Thank you.
Lou?
I'd like to echo that. I'd also like to ask if we can put there's no crosswalk identification where this lighting is going to go, correct?
No, there's striping on the crosswalk.
There is?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Just want to make sure.
Maybe repaint it.
Could it be,
Next year one is warmer.
Nice and pink.
it can be redone to help highlight that area? I know there are a lot of kids in that area.
Yeah.
I'm all for this and then some.
No, we do pavement marking every year. We'll just make sure that that's on that program to make sure it gets done.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Yep, aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Okay, under Plan Commission, consider act on an ordinance to adopt the City of Oconomowoc Comprehensive Plan 2050. We need a motion to give the ordinance its first reading.
So moved.
Second.
I think we've seen it. Are there any questions on the comprehensive plan?
Paul is here as well as myself to answer any questions if you have anything. I just want to state this isn't really the end. This is just the new beginning. There's a lot of initiatives and goals and objectives listed in the plan, and we're going to put those in our strategic plan, and we're going to continue to work on these things.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for all your efforts on this and getting this accomplished.
Thank you.
Eric?
I'd like to echo that for both you, Christie, and Paul and his crew. It's a long process, but appreciate the effort. Thanks.
I'd also want to add the steering committee, the council, the plan commission. We had members from the Park and Rec Board. We had a lot of people involved in this and the community. 1,250 plus respondents. So it was not just a council effort, it was a community effort to get this done. And hopefully this will give us a good plan to move forward to the next 25, 30 years.
We found out the residents of this community were really engaged.
Yes,
I
they were.
attended several of the pop-up events at the farmer's market. It was a beautiful day. We had people there for hours and hours wanting to talk about the city, the land use, all of the things inside the plan.
Good. Okay, we have a motion and a second to give the ordinance its first reading. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Swart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Without objection, we'll waive the rules for the second reading. Okay, the ordinance is law. Next is consider act on ordinance attaching certain lands from the village of Summit to the city of Oconomowoc, the Southwood subdivision. Need a motion to give the ordinance its first reading?
So moved.
Second.
You want to explain the ordinance, there are changes here?
Okay, well, this is kind of like unnecessary, but we like to paper things over. By virtue of the 1999 cooperative boundary plan that I was on the other side of, when I was wearing white hats. No, I'm just kidding. These lands will detach automatically as a matter of law. However, it's good to acknowledge it and do an ordinance officially attaching them. And so this ordinance describes the lands that are going to be coming into the city and assigns them the appropriate zoning as was explained by your planner. And I highly recommend that you approve this.
As far as the street numbering, that will be taken up next month?
Yeah, the street numbering issues were raised, and it's really not on the agenda. But since you see it in the ordinance and they kept the same numbers, the direction from the mayor and in consultation with your public safety folks is that we prepare an amendment to the ordinance that does not mandate in all instances that you change house numbers. If you have a situation where it's a defined small area where it will not create any problems or confusion from a public safety perspective, then the proposed ordinance, at least in my mind, I haven't drafted yet, will give your public safety director the authority to waive that. And it will not really create a problem in the future, because if you have annexations coming in, or if you have large tracts of land coming in through future boundary agreements, you can deal with that at that point in time and make it known to everyone that you're going to change your numbers, not 20 years after the fact. Oh, by the way, you got to change your number. So I think that was the directive, staff, mayor, and myself. And that's what the recommendation is going to be when we come back to that in the first meeting in December, hopefully.
Yeah.
The only meeting in December.
Right. Good.
I appreciate the fact that you led that effort to keep those numbers the same in this case and give the flexibility moving forward. And I think the residents have obviously acknowledged that as well, so thank you.
It wouldn't be a very good welcome to make them change it, I don't think, so. Other comments? Call the roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Without objection, we'll waive the second reading. Not an objection?
No, and it wasn't a bodily function either.
Ordinance is law. Moving on, consider acting on ordinance to zone parcels in the Southwood subdivision to SR, Suburban Residential District. We need a motion to give the ordinance its
moved.
first reading.
Second.
Any questions? This makes it SR just like all of our other basic areas. Seeing no other comments, call the roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Without objection, we'll waive the second reading. Ordinance is law. Next item, consider act on ordinance to repeal and recreate Plan Development Ordinance 06-0647 for Vespera 2. We need a motion to give the ordinance its first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Jason?
We held a public hearing on this earlier. I just want to reiterate what it is for. It's to create a planned development overlay district. Currently, the zoning is multifamily on this property, but PD is a special district that allows for some flexibility. They're asking for flexibility of building separation and the driveway widths. So we create a special secondary ordinance that defines the regulations of that particular site. The Plan Commission did recommend this. They kicked it around a little bit. They had some concerns that were changed in the draft that's in front of you. There's also an attorney that represents the existing 7 unit owners out there in their own association, that he wanted specific language in number 19 in the code that talks about that there'll be a separation of condominium associations, that they will not be part of that association, and that was all incorporated in. So what you're acting on is the code, or the ordinance that the Plan Commission is recommending to you. I did add in driveway widths as well, because that was a thing that the Plan Commission asked for. I'm available to answer any questions.
Questions? Go ahead.
Who gets the boat slips?
There's no boat slips for Vespera 2, the one that we're acting on. All the boat slips are with the initial homeowners, condominium owners association.
Good question.
Thank you.
Other questions? We have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Oh, that hurt.
Alderman Spiegelberg. Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray. Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Without objection, we'll waive the second reading. Ordinance is law. Thank you, Jason. Moving on to new business, consider act on adoption of the 2020 City of Oconomowoc budget. We need a motion to approve the budget.
So moved.
Second.
Does it have, Lori presented it earlier. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Lou.
We had previously removed the employee recognition funding in there of approximately $1,500. I'd like to make a motion to entertain putting that back in. I feel it is a recognition program based on length of service, and more importantly, is part of recognizing that we are an organization that values the longevity of those employees who have dedicated their time as employees to serve our community and to move us forward. We are about a $60 million organization. So recognize a $60 million organization is looking to eliminate $1,500 in recognizing the only official employee recognition program in place. I don't think it's excessive. I don't think it is wasteful. I think it is an investment that will yield a cultural impact and benefit to our organization as a $60 million service entity to our citizens. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to put the employee recognition back in to the budget for 2020.
We have a second?
$1,550.
Second.
Do we need a 2/3 vote on that?
No.
No.
It's not like, it's not an amendment.
Don't have an adopted
Got it
budget
here
yet.
Didn't we, I recall, wasn't it a higher amount and we only removed part of it?
Yeah, originally, the full amount, we left $900 in the budget to recognize employees as they retire.
Okay, so the other 15 is just for anniversaries and things like that?
Correct.
Okay, go ahead, Derek.
I think there was something in there, there was different recognition years, and I really wasn't in favor of 5-year recognitions. I think it seems a little bit close to when you started, basically, to be giving recognitions, and I just feel I could see maybe, as somebody's been here maybe 15 years, 20, stuff like that, but I'm not, I think 5-year recognitions, you know, they gave me a pin at the state. It wasn't some kind of a gift certificate. So, I don't know. I'm not in favor of it.
Any other comment? Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of it either. Somebody's been working for another individual for 5 years. What does that mean? Now, I understand being this is 2019, somebody working for somebody for 5 minutes is considered something of a success. But at the end of the day, I just don't see it. 25 years? Absolutely. 50 years? Most definitely. But for 5 years, 10 years, or 15? No, I just don't see it.
Go ahead, Lou.
One of the suggestions that was made during this discussion was to see if we could solicit private donations to make that up. And I don't think I did ask that question. I don't think we can do that. Yeah. So that again is a reason I'd like to see it put back in, because we can't, as a city entity, go to private companies asking them for gift cards or things of that nature to recognize our employees in lieu of us investing our money into that program. So without those funds, we can't get creative in doing a public-private recognition program.
Aaron?
Sarah, maybe? Can you, or Lori, can you refresh our memory again on what those gifts were at those certain periods of time?
I'm trying to pull it up.
Oh, you are? Okay, great.
I haven't found it yet.
Okay.
Go ahead, Derek.
I believe, since I've been here, we have never not given a cost of living increase of at least a minimum of 2%. 2.5%, I believe, is what was in the current budget. I think that's our way of saying, honestly, that's our way of, I don't get a raise every year at my job. I worked for a public company and received 2% over 6 years total. So I'm just saying, we give incremental raises every year and don't question them. And I think that's enough.
You got the numbers yet?
I got it.
Okay.
So it was 5 and 10 years was a $50 gift certificate, 15 and 20 was 100, and 25, 30, 35, 40, and we haven't had anybody that made it 50 yet, but 200 for those. And then, yeah, that's right, the retirement part stayed in.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I'm an employer. I have employees. I've had some that have worked for me for over 10 years. I have one that's worked almost 15 years. You know what they appreciate more so than anything else? A handwritten letter of thank you. I think that's basically all we really need to do. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. And oh yeah, by the way, here's your cost of living adjustment. I think that's all we really need to do.
Aaron?
Do you guys know, are they appreciated? I mean, I'm sure it's not that they're not appreciated, but is it something that it really makes a difference for them to get that $50 after 5 years? Or?
We haven't had this employee recognition program. If you remember, this was an initiative that the Personnel Committee asked us to bring forward. We did that. The Personnel Committee and the council approved that just this year. So it was going to first be implemented in 2020. So we haven't had it yet. So I don't know how it would be received.
And has there been any type of recognition?
Not
any type
formal,
of just,
no.
you know, not even from a monetary standpoint, but just any type of recognition that they've been here 5 years or 10 years or whatever?
I personally do things as administrator. I do handwritten notes to our employees at certain milestones. And different departments do different things on their own. Each manager kind of does different things. A lot of times out of their own pocket, they'll, buy lunch or do different recognitions and things of that nature. But the city doesn't have a formal policy, so that was brought forward based on Personnel Committee's request.
Eric, did you have your hand up?
Oh, I'm scratching my back.
Tom?
Didn't you used to get a turkey?
Get a turkey at the
It was.
That's what I thought. because-
Christmas time, you used to get turkey.
Years ago, the city did provide a holiday turkey, but that was removed from the budget. I don't know,
Really like that
5, 10
turkey.
years ago.
It was a piece of paper, because I know, I remember when I was on one of the boards, it
Probably
expired and
5.
I didn't get
Probably
anything.
2008.
You would exchange it.
One more thing.
Go ahead.
Again, I think our city employees value their jobs. Do I think somebody's gonna leave at 5 years if they don't get a $50 gift certificate? No, I don't. Do I think that it impacts the culture of the organization to recognize them at those milestones? Yes, I do. And I get, when you're a small business, when you're able to see them in that light, which is a bit more intimate, that's great. We're a $60 million organization, and we've debated this $1,500 expenditure to impact how many employees do we have, Lori, roughly?
Full-time employees, about 120.
So 120 employees, $60 million organization, $1,500 for longevity recognition is what we're discussing. It is not significant to the taxpayer. It is more significant to the culture of the organization, not to those who are about to retire, because we already have money in there to celebrate their retirement. It is to recognize their commitment and dedication to staying here. And the new generation that's coming in, while again, COLA increases, benefits are great, we're a good organization. Culturally, I strongly still recommend that we do this little bit to help fortify that relationship between us as an employer and our staff.
Go ahead, Andy.
So when I worked at UPS, they had employee recognition. It was 5-year, 10-year, safe driving, accident injury, like, and you know what? You're right, at 5 years, you kind of thought it was cheesy and stupid, but I made it 10 years and I got a stack of these things because I collected them, because no accidents, no injuries. And you actually got to go on and get a cheesy watch or whatever, depending upon what you were doing, and that's how they worked it. Looking back, because this is a really long discussion about something very simple, did it make me want to pay more attention? Absolutely. Was it cheesy and kind of stupid? Was some of the gifts a little ridiculous? 100%. It's dangerous to say we're a $60 million a year company, it's only $1,500, because that can create a cancer.
Mhm.
But I also agree that I don't think it's stupid. I think it does help. You just may not see it right away. It's one of those weird, I'm for it. I think it's worth it. I think it's gonna help. Do I think our employees have good benefits and are taken care of fairly well? I haven't been around that long, but it seems like they're staying average, and that's pretty good in a lot of industries.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor to amend it to add the $1,500 back in. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Nay.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Nay.
Any other changes that we'd like to make?
We do need an amendment potentially for the dispatch changes. We need the council to formally enact that.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
just going to put those back up here for you. There's the amendment for the dispatch, and the WCC payment
Yes.
needs to be made as a motion.
Okay, so we need a motion to amend the budget. Do you have the,
Yep, I'm coming right up with it for you. It's right here.
I have some questions.
so, hang on a second. You want, on this or on something else?
On
Go
this.
ahead, go ahead.
I just want to confirm that where it says eliminate town of Oconomowoc dispatch revenue,
Yeah.
is that $27?
That's 27,000.
$2,700 or
It's
27,000?
Missing a zero.
Did
You
I miss the zero?
yeah.
Missed a zero.
I apologize. Oh, 2,700 is not right. It's
27.
27,000.
The
I
number's still the
apologize.
s- The bottom number's still the same, though.
The bottom number's still the same, didn't
That's just
change
a typo.
anything. I
Can I-
just had a typo right there.
Go ahead.
Since Diane stuck it out here for so long, I wanted to bring up the doggy waste bag thing. Our idea behind that, when we were in discussion, is that we were gonna maybe open, correct me if I'm wrong, but we were gonna try and open it up to local businesses to maybe to donate the bags with their name on it. It's a little bit of an advertising for them, so.
I could put a little comment.
Thanks for hanging out. Right, all right.
I could put a
Just didn't
comment
want
on
you to
that.
think we're gonna leave them empty.
Who wants to put
I'm
their
gonna
name on
comment
a
on that
poop
too,
bag?
because I walked around the lake this weekend and there's no bags at all, anywhere around, all the way around Father Lake.
We're still
So-
paying for them, why aren't there
So there are
bags?
no bags. I'm looking at Craig.
It was one.
One bag.
Bags?
But I mean, here we are talking about bags for $1,000 and people walk around the lake and there's no dog bags.
Then we have probably reached out to any of the local businesses.
We have.
Probably not, but
No, we
still,
have.
Yeah,
they
but
still
it's
should be
still in the
out.
budget right now for
Ju-
bags.
No, well, yeah,
No, it
it
wasn't.
wasn't silly at all.
That was
I think
actually,
it was silly. I just
Um,
wanted you to know the history.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
and-
would not
and-
want to be bagless.
And to that
Yeah.
point, we have talked to a local business who previously was supporting the, and they have committed dollars to help make up that reduction. That public-private partnership in that format is, yep. We'll still take your money if you have some money that you want to contribute to it, but that is a benefit for the community and that approach.
Better hurry up and get
So-
it by Monday.
Okay. Amendment then, to amend the budget to remove, basically to add back, actually to remove a total of 145,000, is that right?
Yes, we would be adding back $17,000 in the operating budget for dispatch and removing the one-time cost of the $162,440 for the WCC, and that nets to a reduction of $145,440.
What
I'll
about
make
adding
that
back the-
motion.
What about adding back the employee recognition?
That was already
Okay.
motioned.
Okay.
Approved, but
Yep.
I'm giving you your new number that you need to vote on here at the
Okay,
end.
so that motion that was to
This is the motion.
add back 17,000, remove 162,440, do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second, this is an amendment to the budget that was previously published, so. Oh,
Kevin.
Kevin,
Mhm.
Happened
call
so
the roll,
quick.
please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Right now?
Yep.
Okay, so now we have an amended budget in the amount, total levy amount of $11,879,343.
Got that
You
in
already
there.
added that.
So
Sure.
Mayor, there's two motions on the agenda. One is to approve the amended, or the budget
Right.
now as amended, and then the second motion is to set the tax
Right,
levy
right, that's
at the
item-
11,879. So we still need a motion on the
Well, we have to vote on this first.
approve, the levy is the second thing. Yep,
We have to, we have to vote on the adoption of the budget.
yes.
Which we
Adopt the
already have
budget
out
as
there.
amended. Mhm.
Adopt the budget as amended. You have a motion and a second out there?
Um,
Not yet.
no,
We did initially.
as presented, I mean, that was the motion.
Motion to approve the budget as amended
Amended.
tonight.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the budget as amended tonight. Didn't you already?
So
do that?
moved.
Second.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
Call the roll?
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Nay.
Next item is consider act on setting the 2019 property tax,
Levy.
no, hang on a second. Yeah, we're fine.
Yep.
I was just, if we needed since we amended it, if we needed no, okay. Consider act on setting the 2019 property tax levy in the amount of $11,879,343. We need a motion to set the levy.
Make a
Motion
motion to
accept
set the levy.
Both said at the same time.
Hysteria.
Someone
I'll
gonna-
second then.
Have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Wait, I got a question.
Go ahead.
Just want to back up just a little bit because I'm a little confused and I just want to make sure I'm okay. What's our debt right now? Where are we? You had mentioned it before.
Yep, I have it.
Yeah.
I have it. Our debt service fund, so our current outstanding debt after tonight's issue is 20,500,000.
Now, is that
20.5
including
million.
the projects for 2020?
No. That's
So-
includes the projects through 2019. So next year, in the plan, in the capital plan that we approved tonight, there's a little $3.1 million worth of borrowing. That's for streets, Forest Street, and I'll have to pull it up.
Thackeray Trail.
Thackeray.
But that's
Yeah,
not,
Thackeray Trails,
that's not part,
impact fees.
that's not part of it,
Oh,
that's
no.
impact
Yeah,
fees. Forest Street was the big one.
Forest Street was the big one, yeah.
And as far as the police station is concerned, is that
We did
is that
that
in there?
tonight.
That's
That's
part
this
of
year.
the
Yep, that's in there.
2019.
That's part of the 2019?
Yes, that's already in there.
Okay, so what are we missing, just ballpark,
What are we missing?
for 2020? What,
Total debt, is that what you're?
total debt?
The
Yes.
total debt for 2019,
2020.
or for 2020, I'm sorry, is in this, right here, 3,165,000.
So sometime in November of next year, we could be looking at a total debt of Oconomowoc of 24,
23, yeah.
23, 24?
The only thing, and I should have put a comparison chart up here for you like I did for the levy, and we'll do that when we talk about the full debt plan in January. But as I showed you in this slide here for the debt service fund, you know, our capacity is 122 million. We're at 20
I
million.
understand that, I understand
And
that.
so what I'm just saying in comparison-wise for other cities, I mean, if you ask the auditors when they're here, we're really low. And so we've done a really good job with the debt that we have.
I understand that. I guess my concern here is this, and I'm hoping I'm not going to be too long-winded. I've got a Discover card. I have a credit limit of $25,000. Does that mean that I have to go anywhere close to that? And the bottom line here is, once I do use the card, don't I have to kind of pay it back? So my concern is what we're going to do going forward, because I see this debt increasing more and more and more and more, and it's not going away. How much do we still owe on the rec department?
On here, 2 million, I can't see.
2,000,008.
2.8 million, sorry, I can't see it very well, but yeah, 2.8, they're all on there, on that chart in front of you on the screen that shows the
can't see
outstanding
it.
debt
Yeah, I
issues
can't
that
see
we
it.
have. You can't see it either, okay. So one of the things that, with the city's debt policy, we borrow for long-term projects. We don't borrow for operating expenses or, ongoing costs that the city would have. Same as you would do at your house. If you were going to do a renovation to your house, you would likely have to borrow money for it.
That's not
When
true.
we're doing, well, this is what I'm trying to say, is we use it for long-term capital projects, and the city is using it for projects whose life lasts longer than the debt that we have out there. So that's what we're using debt
I would,
for, Kevin.
I would hope that would be true.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing, at least since I've been on council, an ever-increasing debt that seems to not go away, and every year we're just paying interest only.
We're
And
not
that
paying interest
concerns
only.
me.
We're paying capital on these.
We pay principal and interest every year. It's just this construction loan that we have that, we're scheduled to pay an interest payment when we refinance it. All of our debt, we pay principal and interest every year. So we make 2 interest payments a year and a principal payment every year. So, even Shalou's point where it's a daily, I mean, we go from, what the last principal payment was, and then we pay the interest 6 months later, and then 6 months later.
Similar to when you have a mortgage on your house, when you build your house, when you build your house, you have a construction loan and you pay just the interest. until you finalize it, then you take out the mortgage. Same exact thing we're doing here.
Okay, I just want us to be mindful of the fact that we do have a huge debt going into next year, and it's only going to increase. And let's go ahead and think about how we can bite that down, because I know we are, according to this, our city debt capacity is 122 million. I don't even want to come anywhere close to that.
No.
And regardless if it's 25 million or if it's 40 million, the bottom line here is we're going to be responsible for that. And ultimately, it's going to be the taxpayer that's going to be responsible for it. So we have to figure out, going forward, how we're going to pay that debt down.
The
I'll
reason
leave it
that
at
you
that.
want debt though too is that instead of you paying for it all now.
I understand that.
No,
But trust me, I understand that.
let the future pay for it too, because they're the ones that are gonna be using it in 20 years.
Well, regardless of that, we still have the responsibility to make sure there is a future.
You have something you wanted to add?
I was just going to remind the council that we have, remember when we did the long-term financial plan process in January, we're going to be sitting down and looking at the long-term plan and the debt, potential debt structure and the financing sources, and so everybody can, we can strategize at that time how we want to move forward. So that's in the works. Okay?
Thank you.
I understand where you're going with this, Kevin. The best way to deal with the debt is, and to pay it down, is through growth. And our community has been growing at a fairly sizable clip. I think for the most
Lou, I'm
part.
sorry to stop you, but that is not true. Look at the United States. We're over $1 trillion at this point and growing. And just a few years ago, I'm going to get myself in trouble for this one, but I don't care. Just a few years ago, some president stated the only way that we can actually save is if we spend. I'm sorry, I got a problem with that. All I'm stating here is that we have to be mindful of what we're doing. That's all. That's it.
Not debating that at all.
Okay, we're not gonna be debating
Yep.
back and forth. Kevin,
what-
Lou has the floor.
What I'm suggesting is that our community is growing. Through that growth, we have opportunity to pay down that debt. I do have concerns over the debt as well, but as you can see on this chart, a significant portion of that debt is now being taken up by our public safety building. And that is one of our priorities in maintaining a safe community. There was a lot of debate and discussion about that. It is where we are. And I'm not suggesting that we aren't mindful about our debt and how we spend. We need to be incredibly mindful about our debt and how we spend. We are a conservative, a fiscally conservative community. We have proven that over the years. And I think as you've seen the discussion over the $1,500, we generally do not spend our money frivolously. That doesn't take away anything from being mindful. We do need to maintain that. We need to invest appropriately and grow accordingly. So while I've actually been struggling somewhat with supporting the budget because of the debt, I think its investment and our growth provide substantial economic benefit to the community, and short-term, long-term plans are in place in order to manage that in a very effective way. So I'll be supporting the budget.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the tax levy. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Swart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Nay.
Okay, the tax levy is approved. Moving on this, on the amended agenda, we have item 11, which is selection of council representative to Plan Commission by Alderman. I'll let Alderman Zwart explain why
Yeah.
this is going on.
The reason I'm resigning from Plan Commission is because I'm going to be missing 3 of the next 4 meetings, and then after that, we'll be re-voting for somebody on Plan Commission
April, yeah.
anyway. And I missed the November meeting. It's because of work and personal related things. I missed the November meeting as well, and I think that it's important that the citizens have a representative from council on Plan Commission. And for me, being there once in the next 4 months is just not appropriate, and I don't want to be that type of a representative. So I'd appreciate it if somebody else would step up to the plate and take over for me for a few months. And I've been doing this for a long time, and I do enjoy it, and I'm going to miss it, but I just don't think it's right.
Commend Alderman Zwart for realizing that he's going to be missing and seeing that someone should be appointed, because the council should be represented on the Plan Commission. So I'll take nominations now for a replacement. Karen,
I'd like to nominate Charlie Shaw.
we have to have seconds on these?
Yeah, they are doing this election themselves.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other nominations? Seeing no other nominations, close the nominations and take a vote, I guess. Go ahead.
Okay.
This is to approve Alderman Shaw as a Plan Commission representative.
Will you be able to do it? Can I ask him
He's
that
here all the
question?
time for a minute.
I know he is, but I just, Charlie, it's fun. Except for you gotta sit over here.
I'll behave.
You can bring your chair over if you want.
Buy me any beer
Okay,
for
go
that
ahead.
second.
Alderman Spiegelberg,
Aye.
Alderman Zwart,
Aye.
Alderman Stray,
Of course.
Alderman Kavieski,
Aye.
Alderman Rogers,
Aye.
Alderman Shaw,
Aye.
Alderman Helen.
Aye.
Well, with a bang.
I owe you a beer, Charlie, thank you.
Charlie.
Staff reports.
Meeting this evening.
Comments from Alderman? Go ahead, Lou.
I'm really excited about the next couple weeks with our community, the German Christmas market, Thanksgiving, the holiday train. This community comes alive like no other community at this time of year. And I'm excited to see everybody come out, participate in all of the events. And I would like to personally thank everyone who volunteers their time to make all of those events so wonderful.
2 weeks ago, during our marathon meeting that we had here, like 6 hours, I came to the meeting all banged up. My doctors at the VA says, you know, take care of yourself, you can't do this and that. I did it because I had to do it. It was my job to do it. I'm not much better today, and here I am for another big vote. So it's about time that I, you know, move on and get out of the job. I think it's been 7 years, and my book is falling apart anyway, so I might as well give it to somebody else. So I thought it's time for me to go out on a good hand. And then, you know, speaking about the radio, I was on KLH last Veterans Day, 6 o'clock in the morning in a snowstorm. So I got great reviews too. I was supposed to be really serious about veterans and that, and it turned out to be quite a show. But anyway, so that's what, yeah, I think it's, my civil servant days are not over because I'm a civil servant on so many other things, but anyway.
You'll be missed.
Yeah, very much.
Oh, but then I heard a good comment tonight about how good one of my questions was, and I thought maybe I shouldn't.
Any other comments from Alderman? Go ahead, Karen.
I would just like to thank Lori and Sarah, all the department heads, council members, all the staff, everyone who worked to pull this budget together. We have a balanced budget that is fiscally responsible and within inflationary guidelines. Our tax rate is going to be, now with the add back in, just a little bit over 5.73, but that's below the median average of 6.5 for communities that are our size. I requested some information today from Lori I mean, you can't compare us to Waukesha, but Waukesha is in double digits. Watertown is like 9%. We have a debt ratio that is only 18%, which is very, very good, and I'm very proud of that. And we have a very good credit rating in this city. So I just want to thank everybody for this process. It's a long and arduous process, but I really like where we've settled in with all of this, so.
Good. Kevin?
I just too want to thank the staff, putting up with me and answering my questions 3 and 4 and 5 times. I'm proud to be part of Oconomowoc. I am. I want to thank council also for putting up with me and sometimes asking not so intelligent questions. But I think this process has been a good one. I also want to thank staff for taking my phone calls at odd hours of the day and listening to me probably ask the same question 4 and 5 and 12 and 15 times, and making themselves available to me. I want to thank you for that. I really do.
Any other comments from Alderman? Seeing none, I have several. As noted here, the December 3rd council meeting, which is the same night as the holiday train, we're going to cancel that meeting. If for some reason something comes up, which we're working on not having come up, the alternate date would be December 4th, which would be Wednesday. So hopefully, getting near the end of the year, we got the budget passed and everything. The hard work is done, so hopefully we won't have that. Next item is on Monday, next Monday, November 25th. I've been invited to do participate in a radio show on 95.7 FM. It's a, what do they call it, Mondays for Mayors or something like that. It's something that they have from the 25th through Christmas, where a mayor of a community can come on, do some live interviews. So I'll be on between 8 and 9. And then they'll be taping some things between, during that time to broadcast later in the day to promote the community. And it's perfect timing because the following Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is our German Christmas market, so I'll have a chance to promote that. December 3rd, the holiday train, which comes in, will be in town about 6:40. So that'll be another big event. And then December 7th is the tree lighting, 5 o'clock, and then the parade. So hopefully everybody can attend that. So it's going to be a very eventful and exciting next few weeks. Like Lou had said, this is the time of the year when Oconomowoc can really show itself proud, and I think there will be thousands and thousands of people in town, so it should be a good time. One other thing I just want to remember everybody, if anybody is interested in running for public office, December 1st is when you can start not filing your papers, but going out and getting signatures. We have 4 all-magic seats. Now we have 2 that'll be vacant, and the mayor's seat will be vacant. So there will be a new look to this council next year. So anybody that's interested, now is the time to go out and consider it and contact the clerk, go on the website, figure out how you want to do it, and encourage everybody to run. It should be, it'd be nice to see contested races in all the different seats. So that's all I have. We need a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.